An excerpt from Husbands May Come and Go, But Friends Are Forever. Husbands May Come and Go, But Friends Are Forever takes place in Northern California in the spring of 2000, when the dot-com boom was at its peak. Elizabeth Riley Hayden is a successful executive in her late 50s and a divorced mother of two. Emotionally armored and living alone, she wants only to maintain the status quo, her long-term significant other, her job, and her trusted friends. 5 feisty women whose high school friendship has carried them through multiple marriages, dramatic divorces, and maddening menopause. Yet in a matter of days, the 3 anchors that have kept her moored are ripped away. The group of lifelong pals gathers at Lake Tahoe to attend to the funeral arrangements of their beloved friend Karen, and tries to unravel the mystery of her death. The story is told from Liz's perspective. The women are gathered in the living room of Karen's vacation home, reminiscing. In the late 70s, women began inviting their friends and neighbors to get-togethers in their homes where they could buy sex toys. The hostess would earn points based on the total of purchases, much like the structure of a Tupperware party, hence the name Fuckerware Party. Only at these parties, the hostess gift might be a cock ring instead of a Jell-O mold. Out of curiosity, Arlene decided to host one of these pleasure parties and invited the girls, along with a few other open-minded friends and neighbors. Secretly, I was feeling more than just a little uneasy about attending. I wasn't looking forward to imagining my friends naked and horizontal, experimenting with bedroom accessories. We girls went over early to have a few drinks to loosen up. In the kitchen, I was drinking glass after glass of the rum punch Arlene had made. When she smiled at me, I pushed aside a plant that hung in a macrame holder and grabbed her by the elbow. "I don't want to touch anything," I whispered. She nodded, knowingly. We were pretty well oiled by the time the party started, which helped reduce my anxiety. Arlene's small living room was crowded with folding chairs in anticipation of a big crowd. Like birds on a wire, Joe, Arlene, Gidge, Karen, and I all squeezed into the rattan couch, our hips touching each other. The demonstrator, Mrs. Beadle, had arrived weighed down with 3 oversized Rubbermaid containers. A plain woman in her 50s with the sweet smile of a child. Mrs. Beadle looked like she belonged in the church choir instead of hawking sex toys. "I'm sure you've all seen or heard of fruit-flavored lubricants," Mrs. Beadle said with confidence, as she rummaged through one of her tubs. "But the ones I'm about to show you also heat up when you rub them on. Here, rub some of this on the back of your hand." She handed a plastic bottle to Karen. "Rub it on this," Gidge said out of the corner of her mouth, pretending to lift her skirt. Karen slapped her on the leg. "Pass the bottle around when you've finished testing it," Mrs. Beadle instructed. "The next item is our Benoit balls." She quickly produced a handful of silver shiny balls, the size of jumbo-sized jawbreakers connected by a chain. They reminded me of the ball bearings Humphrey Bogart rolled around in his hand in the movie Caine Mutiny. For centuries, women have used these to strengthen the muscles of the vagina. Mrs. Beadle offered the string of balls to the women seated to her right, who had been introduced to us as Marilyn Carter, a neighbor of Arlene's. Reluctantly, Marilyn held out her hand, raising her eyebrows. "Do you have some a little larger for the mature woman?" Gidge asked, scooping clam dip into a chip. "Like bowling ball size?" Karen asked, tossing her blonde hair as she laughed. Mrs. Beadle ignored the interruption, but I noticed some of the other guests squirming nervously in their seats. "Okay, now here's a little gadget that we've received rave reviews on, especially from women who have jobs in manufacturing, like on an assembly line." She held up what looked like a plastic soap holder suspended from a thin elastic belt with a battery pack. "You can strap this on in the morning and have multiple orgasms all day," she said with a straight face. An unexpected yelp escaped me. "Now you're talking," Arlene said, popping up from her seat and reaching for the apparatus. She scrutinized it carefully, turning the switch on and off, watching the ring of plastic vibrate violently. When she was satisfied that she understood how it worked, she passed it to Gidge. who stuck the contraption up her skirt and rolled her eyes in mock ecstasy. "Gidge," Jo scolded, aware of the disapproving looks on the faces of the other guests. "Oh, I'm just kidding," Gidge replied, taking the thing from between her legs. "Here," she said, tossing it to Jo, who tossed it to me to Karen, Karen to Arlene, and soon we were playing a grown-up version of the grade school party game Hot Potato. Mrs. Beadle ignored our childish antics. "Now, let's move on to the star of our product line," she said. With that, she reached into a tub and pulled out a huge black dildo with a crank on the end. My face registered such shock it made Karen laugh. "Holy shit!" Gidge exclaimed, expressing my reaction in words. The neighbor, Marilyn Carter, pulled back in horror. "Meet Mr. Blackie," Miss Beadle said, as if she were introducing a real person. But the looks on the faces around the room, I wasn't the only one who had never seen such a thing. A hush fell over the group. "Do you have anything for a beginner?" Karen asked in a quiet voice. Arlene let out an explosive laugh. I followed first with a rolling chortle. Then we were all laughing, big throaty ha 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 laughs, laughing so hard that tears leaked out of our eyes. Even Arlene's stuffy neighbor Marilyn let out a few nervous titters. "Why, yes, I have just the thing," Mrs. Beadle answered when she could be heard over the racket. She reached into another tub and brought out a much smaller, flesh-colored vibrator. "This is Mr. Pinky," she said. The vibrator hummed with an intensity that Pavarotti would admire. Karen was sold. "I'm serious," Jo interjected. "Somebody should go into Karen's bedroom and find that damn thing and get rid of it." "I vote for you, Jo," Gidge teased. "Look for Karen's will while you're in there," I suggested. "I don't know what I'd do without my vibrator," Arlene said, sitting heavily on the couch next to Gidge. "I haven't had sex in so long. I think I probably qualify as a recycled virgin." I doubted that was true. "I know what you mean," Gidge agreed. "My nookie days are pretty much over, too." "Hey, listen to this," Jo said, looking up from a page in Cosmopolitan magazine. "According to this article, last year close to 90,000 women got breast enlargements and 60,000 women got reductions." "That reminds me," Gidge interrupted. "I read somewhere the other day that the latest trend in plastic surgery is reconstructing vaginas." "What?" Jo shrieked. "Yeah, women are going in for everything from a twat tightening to prettying up the old labial lips." "Where do you read this shit?" Arlene asked, curling her lip. "It was in one of those fashion rags, Bazaar or Vogue or something," Gidge answered indignantly. "Anyway, eventually everything sags. I guess now you can even have your snatch lifted." "Unbelievable," Jo marveled as she rifled through the magazine. "They probably even do pubic hair transplants," I said. "No more bald beavers." Jo laughed at the bizarre prospect. Rosie wasn't joining in the folderol. I asked her what was wrong. Karen would have loved this conversation, she almost whispered, her eyes wet with tears. "Geez, Rosie," Gidge said, throwing up her hands.